Hi, welcome back to Just Vetting, where we go beyond the clinic walls to talk leadership, ownership, and the real-world challenges shaping veterinary medicine. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Craig Mohnacky, founder and CEO of Mohnacky Animal Hospitals in Southern California. Over the past 4 decades, Dr. Mohnacky has built a multi-location organization known for advanced medicine, strong culture, and deep community involvement. Craig, it's great to have you on the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me here, Peter. I'm honored to be here, and I hope I could impart some pearls of wisdom to our listeners.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. So let's just start from the beginning. What pulled you? This is what I typically ask most of my guests in the very beginning. What pulled you towards veterinary medicine? What was it? Was there a defining moment that pulled you towards it growing up?
You know, I'm not one of those that at 5 years of age, I decided to be a veterinarian. I think it was not until I was in college that I really made the commitment. I loved business, I loved people, I loved animals, and it was just a great combination. Interestingly enough, when I was in junior high school, I used to work and observe with a veterinarian, and he pretty much gave me a good idea what the industry was all about. But I could not, at the time, consummate watching a spay. I would pass out. The minute I saw a little bit of blood, I would be on the floor.
Interesting.
So,
and you still pursued it. That's really interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
What changed?
Well, it was a little quirk that I had said, if this is really what I want to do, I'm not going to let that stop me from doing it. So I just stayed with it. And then once I started doing surgery, I overcame it. But if I see a person's blood or somebody's injured, I'll be on the floor. I remember I was looking at my wife's x-ray in the exam room and she had a broken nose. I was just looking at a broken nose with the doctor.
Right.
I passed out. I was on the floor.
So it's interesting you said that. I have three daughters, and my middle daughter, very strong in math and sciences when she was in high school. And because of what I do for a living, working with so many veterinarians, I said to her, Kimani, why don't you think about, going to vet school? And Craig, she said exactly that. She's like, Dad, I love math, I love science, but I couldn't handle blood or, any of that. It's interesting. Had I known, it could have pushed her a little more towards it and see if you could overcome it. But, most people run from something like that, and you ran towards it.
Yeah, no, it was not something that was going to keep me from doing what I wanted to do. I knew over time I would be able to deal with it, and I deal with it fine.
So you graduated from The Ohio State University. Is that correct? Right?
That's right. The Ohio State. I don't want to, right? It's all good. Yeah. You graduated in 1980, right? 1980, that's right. Yeah, when people ask me where I graduate, I start with The Ohio State.
I know you do.
If I don't, I get just what you gave me.
Yes. I got a lot of friends, and I say, you went to Ohio State, and I always get corrected. So I get it. It's all good. So in those early years, what did that teach you? What did you learn those early years? You talked about business. Now, you just learned about medicine. What did you learn about business, or what were you attracted to towards business?
Yeah. So my first coming out of school, I came to California unlicensed. I had to wait 2 months to get my boards taken, and then right after I got my boards taken, I passed and started my first practice. And so
stop there. You started your first practice when?
In 1981.
So you graduate in 1980. You come out, get your license, and you open up the doors to your first practice.
Yes. I as a licensed individual, I had not worked for another veterinarian as a licensed person. Wow. But when I look back, I felt rather prepared. And a lot of my classmates the same way. We all got out of school, and many of us started our practices right out of school. It's something that you can't imagine it happening at this time because there's so many barriers to the entry of owning a practice.
But, so let's just, and that's a great point. So back then it was pretty common. Have your license, start your practice. Whether whether you're, and even then too, when you're buying a practice from somebody, it was like a handshake. Now you got all these agreements, and that's what keeps us in business, right? What are the barriers you're talking about? So now you fast forward to if you're coming out of school. When you say barriers, what are you referring to?
Well, I think the financial barrier is the obvious.
Yeah.
The practical experiences, the opportunities to get involved with surgery and doing surgery. I had just some unique experiences prior to vet school. I was working at the medical school over at the Ohio State prior to getting into school. I worked with a neurosurgeon, and I was able to do a lot of surgery on rhesus monkeys with experimental spinal cord research. And so I had a good feeling of, I had a lot of good instrumentation and feeling of surgery. And I felt real confident coming out of school with the skills that I had. They're harder to acquire now these days, I think, as a younger individual, just because of the fact that you just don't get those opportunities, and it's just a lot different right now.
Mm-hmm.
But going into my first practice, I could remember. There's a couple lessons I'd like to share with my first experience, because
Please.
I think it kind of helps to show or explain how I got to where I'm at. But in my first practice, my wife started with me in the practice. She's not a veterinarian, but she was my only employee for quite a period of time. But after 5 years, we no longer liked what we did. We loved veterinary medicine when I got out of school, and I basically hit a glass ceiling, and I got burned out. And I looked at my wife, and my wife looked at me, and we basically said, there's got to be more to life than veterinary medicine, because we were just doing veterinary medicine 24/7. And we just hit that glass ceiling. We got burned out, and we left the industry. And I didn't think I'd ever come back. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I didn't think I'd come back. And the first thing I did was get involved with computers. I remember getting, when I sold my practice, I bought a computer, and I spent 12 hours a day just learning how to work a computer. I hooked up with a computer IT guy, and he helped me develop a veterinary office system. And in the early 80s, nobody had computers. Nobody.
Right.
And
right. Microsoft was just kicking off, right? And you're talking the AT&T days. I'm trying to think, in the early 80s, right?
Yeah.
Microsoft had just come out, probably.
Right. Yes. And we used some rudimentary spreadsheets and other things. I think it was Lotus 123, if I recall.
Right.
That really dates me. But anyways,
I know what you're talking about.
I was loving the computer, and I realized what an asset it could be to a practice owner. And so we developed a veterinary office system, and we marketed it to veterinarians, and we had maybe 6 or 8 veterinarians on our system. And then in that same year, I went out and I got a broker's real estate license, and I worked with a broker, and I helped him develop a commercial real estate office. We had 20 salespeople in his office, and I helped him put the computer in his front office and automate things, if you want to call it automation at the time, because back then automation was maybe a point of sales receipt, a reminder system, and an inventory control. And beyond that, there really wasn't much to the computer other than that. But it was a tool that we didn't have before. So after going to this effort to get involved with real estate, getting involved with computers, I learned things that I didn't have. I learned lessons that I didn't learn when I was in school. I learned things like sales, marketing, rejection, delegation. I learned things that I just was never exposed to when I was in veterinary college.
Right.
And after this year of going out and getting all this stuff, I said, boy, I think it would be fun being in practice again with all these newfound skills.
Right.
And
all important life skills that you need to have to interact with people. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I guess my point here and my lesson here is that sometimes as veterinarians, you've got to go outside the industry and find things that work. I remember in my first practice, part of the reason I got burned out is because I tried so hard to look like everybody. You know, coming out of school, I had this vision of what a veterinarian should look like, feel like, what they should do. And I tried to be just like everybody else. I read the same veterinary economics books. I read, everything, and we all did the same stuff. And then I realized that, there are so many success stories out there in terms of how to run a business. And so that year that I took off really gave me some of those opportunities to have a different insight in terms of how a business should be run. So going into my next practice by 5 years later, or 6 years into my practice life, I just did things differently. And that shaped everything in terms of where I'm at now. I mean, that was the beginning of recognizing that change is important. You have to seek change. Leaders never can stop not changing. Many people have the fear of change because of the unknown. But what happens is that once you start experiencing change and realize change brings positive things, it reinforces the fact that you've got to seek change. Mm-hmm. So my message here from my first practice experience is that go outside the industry and figure things out. Read books. I mean, that's going outside your industry. Read self-help books. There's many books that will help you with business, with leadership, with accountability. And so, what we have within our industry is usually not enough in terms of being able to be a steward of your business, if you will.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All great advice.
Yeah, it was a fun story. It's a great experience, and it just led to my my practice situation. I have to look at my practice. I was going to save this for the end, but I'll morph it.
No, please. Yeah.
But everybody looks. You have to understand what your practice means to you. And coming out of veterinary college, what did practice mean to me? Well, I had all this information, right? Coming out of school, I had knowledge. I didn't have competency. I didn't have wisdom. So my first years in practice, I took my information, knowledge, turned it into competency, and turned it into wisdom. And that really was my first goal in my first practice. That's what my first practice meant to me. Down the road, my practice meant something different to me. And what it meant to me then is looking towards my future, my family's future, preparing for your future. And there were a lot of sacrifices, to get to that point. And another lesson is that, don't be afraid of forgoing instant gratification. I think the biggest thing that helped me with my success at this point is I was able to forgo instant gratification, work a little harder now for a lot more later. And I think that that's something that we don't see as much of as we used to.
Right. Everybody wants that instant gratification. I don't want to paint a broad brush.
Yeah,
I hear that a lot.
Yeah. But I tell you, even today, I still forgo instant gratification.
Right.
Why? I don't know, but I do because it's just who we are.
I know I do, but I know my kids don't because I'm paying for their instant gratification. I see it on my Amex card, so it's all good. So going back when you went back into practice again, I guess, what were you doing differently? You mentioned you opened up your doors with your wife, had the first practice, you're working hard. How did you avoid the burnout again that second time around? Well, I guess what lessons did you learn to avoid that? Because as you know now, that is probably one of the bigger issues that we talk about with our clients in terms of burnout or culture with their staff, and everybody wants just quality of life, things of that nature. What changed?
Well, I think my willingness to let go, to give responsible people opportunities. The whole message here is to figure out ultimately how to build something bigger than yourself, and that's what I did not do in my first practice. It was all me. Everything that was done, in my mind, I should be doing it because I do it better than anybody else. And so I should be doing everything. And so I think learning how to build something bigger than yourself is certainly a big part of releasing yourself from that burnout, if you will.
Yeah.
But it's a very hard thing for people to let go, to let others contribute.
Delegate, right? Trust, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's almost. I use the tip of the spear concept or the bottleneck, and whether I think you're in veterinary medicine, accounting, law, you see a lot of that with professionals where I'm the only one who can do it. I know, so I have partners that feel that
Oh
way.
yeah.
That's
And it's a curse. You let go, and you just need to learn how to do that. But there's there's a reason we see all these. I just jumped to this corporate sales and why people are selling, and it goes to a concept of, I see younger doctors that are 45, 50, 60 years old that are selling their practices.
Yes.
But I see them selling the practices for the wrong reason. Like in my first practice, I sold my practice for the wrong reason, and the wrong reason was I didn't have the skill sets to really understand how to run a business. And I see younger doctors selling practices early because they haven't built something bigger than themselves. And they feel that there's no escape, there's no out. And they find selling their practices being maybe an ability to find an out. It's just the easy way out. But I think that trying to give yourself the opportunity to, part of the building something bigger than yourself is you've got to learn how to let go, number one.
Right.
And the one way that I let go is that maybe 8 or 10 years into my practice life, my wife and I decided to start taking more time off because life was going by fast. We loved what we did, but life was going by so very fast. So we decided to take 2.5 months off every summer. And my wife and I are from Ohio.
You guys are the ones who started that whole quality of life issue that we are seeing now in all these businesses.
Yes and no, not quite.
I'm jealous. That's the European model. I need to do that. That's good.
Well, this is probably 35 years ago.
Right.
I imagine 35 years ago. And we decided to slow our lives down. And the way we did that was we purchased a summer home on a lake. And we took our summers off when the kids got out of school. We took them right to the lake. And we were there all summer long.
Did you close the practice down, or the practice was still running while you guys weren't there?
No, the practice was still running. We'd find people that would work the practice.
That's great. Right.
And
you really had to let go then. Obviously, practice is being run. How did you were you able to manage it from a distance other than calling in, I guess, back then, right?
Yeah. Well, I did have a computer that overlooked the lake, and I managed the practice with that computer and through emails and whatnot. But the reality is this. When we did this, it took me 7 years to really have a practice that can actually run on its own. Every year that I came back, trust me, there were problems. Right. It wasn't perfect. Right. And every year when I came back, we identified issues, and I list a couple issues that we had, and then I had 10 months to fix it. And then after 10 months, I'd leave again, and we'd be gone for 2.5 months, and then we'd come back, and there were issues. They were different issues, not the same ones. And it took me 7 years of letting go and learning, and I eventually figured out how to make it not be as big as I. I mean, the practice was bigger than I.
Yeah.
And so
I love that story. And really, I joke about the European model, but I'm envious what you did. I mean, you had the best of both worlds. You're a practice owner. You're in some part-time, an absentee practice owner, but you really weren't absentee, but you're spending that time with your family, which, we all, we passed it. You got a small window with your kids until they grow up. And I'm sure those summers that you spent with them are just timeless, that you guys are never going to forget. I love that story. I did not know that.
The kids are they love their lake experience. Anybody that's been around the lake will talk about their lake experience because it's a memory that a young kid never forgets.
Right.
And
Right.
now my kids are still coming to the lake for a week or so, but my
Yeah.
grandkids are coming out. And I thought I'd have reprieve. I said, I don't need 2 boats. I don't need a ski boat. I don't need a wakeboard boat anymore. But
Right.
now the grandkids are into it. And so, they come out and then they're there for a week and then they want to come out another week. And
Right.
so,
You got to keep everything ready
yeah.
to go for them. I know
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Listen,
Yeah.
I,
I have
I
more toys at the lake now than I had when I had my kids
right
going
when
there.
you were going to use them. Right. They're not even for you anymore. They're for
Right.
everybody else.
Yeah, my
I love
grandkids,
that.
my granddaughter says, "You see that slide over there? It would be fun to have a slide going into the
Yeah.
lake off the dock.
Right.
Next summer, we have a slide going into the lake." So no,
So,
it's just fun.
we talk a lot about now, and I'm sure it was prevalent when in your early days too. But culture, what does a strong veterinary hospital culture look like in practice in your eyes?
Yeah.
I guess back when you started, what you're seeing now. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think culture has to go with the discussion of core values.
Mm-hmm.
My core values when I got out of college and started my first practice are exactly the same then as they are today. Core values should never waver. People look for true north. People live in a society where there's no givens. There's just a tendency towards mass randomness, and people like to see where true north is at. And I think the biggest role that you could be in your practice and as a leader in your practice is to display core values that you don't deviate from. And I'll just share you my core values as we've gone forth. The number one is just building relationships. I got out of bed in the morning when I started my first practice, loving to go to work because of fun to build relationships. We love that relationship building. Number two, my wife and I moved to California without family. We had no family out here. And when we had our first baby and whatnot, we were on our own. So our family became our clinic staff. I mean, that was our family culture. Mm-hmm. And so we really stressed community in the workplace. We stressed harmony in the workplace. When you come to work, we want community, we want harmony. We want people to enjoy being with each other. And that's something that I demand. If you come to work and you don't like what you're doing, go do it somewhere else. It's just part of it's part of the entry fee, if you will, to work at Mohnacky Animal Hospitals. The third core value that we have is building relationships and building careers for people. And I think this is really, really important to take from here is that if you help people grow and develop a career and get opportunity, they will never leave you. They will be with you forever. If they know that you're taking care of their best interest and you're looking for their edification and their growth, and you do things that show that, they will be with you forever. I remember earlier in my practice, I had a woman that came to me and she said, "Dr. Mohnacky, I'm leaving. I took another job because I felt that this was a dead end job. I just don't feel like I'm going anywhere." And that hit me like a brick. Right. And I said, never in my life again is anybody going to leave me saying that they felt they were in a dead end job. So right. We like to have careers. We build people's careers. And I tell people, if you ever leave me, I want you to take something with you. I want you to take something with you. I want you to take a career. I want to take a set of skill sets that you could use in all parts of your life, personal life, religious life, family life, in your practice life. I want you to have skill sets that you didn't have. And then if you do that, I know I've done my job. But I think longevity is with employees is a function of looking after their best interest and helping them build their careers.
Help them build their careers. Let them know that you care. You actually do care about them.
Yeah.
And you mentioned. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and it's a win-win thing. It's like
right.
you don't shine light on someone else's path without shining light on your path too.
Right.
So
right.
It's a win-win situation. You help people get better at what they do, and everybody benefits from that.
So Craig, we talk about Mohnacky Animal Hospitals. How do you maintain consistency across multiple hospitals? how do you do that? Talk to me about, you have a practice, you get burnt out, you sell it, you leave the industry, you come back in, you have another one. Talk to me your journey about building multiple locations, multiple practice, and maintaining that consistency about those. Because a lot of your colleagues just have a difficult time managing one practice, and you have multiple practices, and they're very successful, each one.
Yes, I think the key with the multiple practices that, again, every core values have to be shared by all. Number one, everybody's got to have those core values. The way we structure our practices is that we have a operations director that oversees all practices with me. But in each practice, we have an executive team, which is an executive director, and my chief doctor. And those two individuals help to pursue the goals that we set forth for the practices. Mm-hmm. And they're responsible for maintaining and managing my core values throughout the practices. So there is cultural drift if you let it happen, because things will drift, just like the laws of nature with enthalpy and entropy. Things go toward mass randomness. So you always have to be the glue to keep things together. But I think your core values is the glue that helps maintain your staffing. When I interview people, a doctor, for example, I'll walk them through my practices, and I tell them my core values. And I said, when you go into my practices, I want you to answer, do you see my core values at work? And every time they go through those practices, they'll say, gosh, you were right. I could see those core values. If I could just see them in action. And so that's what keeps the continuity and things going as they are. So the big part of leadership is just demanding your core values, and they're shared by all.
You've mentored a lot of doctors over your period of time. I guess when you see a young veterinarian, what like long-term potential, what stands out? Is there something in your mind that stands out about that young doctor?
In terms of their potential for growth and growing in practice, or
yeah.
I like to see a doctor that is willing to just to take on new insights, new roles, have an open mind on things. We do come out of school. We're trained with algorithms. We're trained by a system, and then when we get out in the real world, things don't work like that in business and with people and with emotions. And so you really have to have an open mind, willingness to change, willingness to adapt. The analogy that I teach my doctors, which I think is a neat analogy to take home, I tell my doctors, I'm going to give you a palette. And as a leader in my practice, I've got to teach you how to paint a good picture. And so I give my doctor a palette, and I said, this is the palette you have. It might not have every color you want. It might not have the bright red you want. It might not have the yellow you need, but it's your palette, and you need to paint me a beautiful picture. And the talented person is going to be able to paint a beautiful picture. The not so talented person is going to look at that palette, and they're going to drop it on the table and walk away saying, I don't have all my colors. I can't do it. We're in private practice, and you're faced with situations where you might not one day have enough staff. You might be short on staff. You might not have the right staff in the right places. You might not have all your stars aligned for that given day. But you know what? Your job as a veterinarian and as a chief in that practice is to create a beautiful picture, no matter what you're given. And so we teach the analogy of I'll give you a palette, I'll do the best I can, I'll give you the best colors, but you know what? You got to figure it out and paint a beautiful picture.
Right. I love that. So a lot of times when clients talk to me about a practice, they want to start a practice or they're going to acquire a practice, and I use a blank canvas analogy. So think of it as a blank canvas, and you can paint any picture that you want. And our job is to help you, put that vision on the canvas. I use a very similar. Maybe I'm going to take your palette analogy. I like that. That's a good one. That's good.
Yeah, and another takeaway is you don't have all the answers. Going into any business venture, any business situation, you cannot not go forward because you don't have all the answers, because you will never have all the answers before you take that leap. And if you do have all the answers when you take that leap, it's probably too late.
Right.
It's probably too late.
Right.
The opportunity is gone. And so sometimes you just have to take calculated risk. Don't be afraid of taking little risks. But they're calculated risks because you're in control, and you're not going to not make it successful.
I talk to a lot of colleagues, who've been out of school for a while, and they said one of the things that's changed from when they may have started to today is you have the opportunity to talk about not knowing. You're not going to know everything, but your team, surrounding yourself with the right team. There are a lot of specialties. Like, look at me. I'm very fortunate to have an opportunity to work as an attorney within the veterinary industry. There's others like me in this space. You have accountants, you have insurance agents, you have bankers, you have consultants. Did you have all those resources when you were starting out? I mean, these are professionals who just practice within this space that, as a young veterinarian who wants to, think about ownership, they can reach out to these professionals and put that team around them. Where I don't know if you had that opportunity when you were starting out.
Yeah, I would say it was more limited. There's no doubt it was more limited. I think it was a leap of faith. The things I had to do, it was a leap of faith. But things are more complex now, and it does take more professionalism. It takes more accounting acumen. It takes more legal understanding. It takes a lot of human resources. There are just so many parts of the equation that didn't exist back then. They were there, but they didn't manifest themselves to any great degree. But now, I mean, just human resources. You've got 50, 100 employees. You've got to have some professionalism and people that know what they're doing to manage that process. And so, reaching out to our gifted attorneys and accountants, it's paramount for sure. Yeah.
Talk to me, Craig, about how did you get involved talk to me about your involvement in VMG and how you got involved in it, and what's your role, and then tell me a little bit about that.
So, as an extension of my core value discussion, the fourth core value is giving back. Mm-hmm. And VMG, I love working with so in VMG, I'm a facilitator, and there's 20 doctors that come to meetings, and my responsibility is to make sure that we have good content, that people participate, that people leave the meeting with accountabilities, leave the meeting with to-dos. And then at the next meeting, my job is to hold them accountable that they did something in their practice, either for themselves, for their clients, for their staff, for their quality of life, that they did something to improve on themselves, then just leave a meeting with a lot of good ideas and not doing anything. So my role as facilitator is just making sure that people get the most that they can out of those meetings. And it's my way of giving back, and I love helping colleagues. I not only help families in need, military families, et cetera, but I liked helping my colleagues. I like to have, it's so fun having 20 students that are eager to grow their practices.
Right.
And they're there for a reason. And, when you have a great student, you're always going to have a teacher. The teachers will be there for you. But the minute you stop being a good student, of course, the teachers just seem to disappear because they want to, get the most out of their time. But I think it's part of giving back, helping my colleagues, realize that it doesn't have to be the way that sometimes people think it has to be. And so I try to be a resource as best I can. I try to share my experiences with my colleagues. Right. And let them learn from my wisdom. When you go through life, you get all this information, you turn into knowledge, and then you get competencies, and then the rarest thing of all is wisdom. Wisdom is highest on the totem pole, and there's less of that. And so if I can impart some wisdom for people, I feel good about that.
You mentioned the military. What you're involved. You started or you founded Helping Paws Military
Yeah.
Appreciation Program. Talk to me about that.
So in 2013, we started our Helping Paws Foundation, and being in San Diego, we have a lot of military family, and I always extended myself to or for military families. And one day I just said, you know what? I need to formalize this because we need to be, number one, recognized for what we do. And we need to have people contribute to our cause and be part of the process. When I went to, if I go out to dinner, I see a military personnel eating dinner. I don't know how many times I picked up their check, incognito, and just said, let me pay their check. And because I just happy to do it. I've been even at a gas station at the pump, and I put my credit card through the gas pump for a military personnel, just to do something, to help. So people innately want to help military families. So right. I formed this Helping Paws Foundation, and the mission of the foundation is to make sure that no military family has to make a decision of economic euthanasia because they can't afford care for their pet. And, these young military families on E4 salaries, they're not making a lot of money, and there's not a lot of discretionary income. So we like to be there to fill that gap when, their dog gets bit by a snake or gets hit by a car or something really unforeseen occurs. And so since 2013, we've helped over 3,000 families with medical care, military personnel. It may be through vaccines, it may be through spay neuter, it may be through managing a fracture, but we are just there for these military families, and it's a great give back, and it's an unconditional give back, and we're happy that we can do that. And to be honest with you, right now, there's one reason I'm still practicing, because it's fun giving back and helping others. And that's what my practice means to me right now is it's a vehicle for me to make a difference in people's lives. And if I can do that, I'm going to have all the purpose that I need. Purpose, longevity, I think go hand in hand. And people, when they talk to me, they say, Dr. Mohnacky, when are you going to retire? It's a very common question. They say, when are you going to retire? And I look at them, I says, I am retired. This is retirement. But, I mean, you have a great sense of purpose. You enjoy what you do, and you're giving back. And that's what the practice means to me right now. It's a vehicle to help others.
Well, it's also a credit that, you built such a great team. You feel like you're retired right now. I know you're not, but you got a great team around you. You got a great culture. It's not really a job. It's more of a way of life, and you enjoy doing what you're doing. What more can you ask for?
Yes, absolutely. I tell my staff when I go through my hospitals, many times I say, guys, I'm still doing what I'm doing. It's because of you. It says you guys inspire me so much, and I get inspiration from my watching teams working so hard. And I tell them, I says, this is why I'm still here. It's for you. Right. And it's very inspirational to be able to experience that. And I'm just fortunate that, I'm in an industry that it's a caring industry, and we can give back the way we can.
It's definitely a caring industry. When I've worked with a lot of different business sectors, and this one in particular, over the last 15 years where I've spent all of my time, it's just different. The people that I deal with, and I don't need to tell you, it's a special. It is a special industry. When I have colleagues of mine here at the law firm who help out or work with our clients, and then they go back and work with other clients outside the industry, they're like, wow, it's always a great experience that they have.
Right.
And I don't take it for granted. Looking forward, 5-10 years from now, what excites you most about where veterinary medicine is headed? And then I guess what excites you? Any concerns you have? If you're looking at the future and what you and your colleagues have talked about.
Yeah, the future, nobody was able to figure out, like pre-COVID, COVID, post-COVID, everybody missed that prediction. I mean, it's like when COVID hit, I was told by many upper level accountants that be ready. You're going to struggle, 30% decline. You better have some savings.
Wow.
And everybody missed the call on everything. Nobody made the call post-COVID either. Nobody thought it would look like it does right now during COVID. And nobody thought post-COVID would look like this. And, it's so hard to see the future, to know what the future beholds. I think the important thing is that we got to be nimble. We got to be able to respond. AI is going to be just amazing what it's going to do to just our workflow, our efficiencies.
Amazing in a good way, not in a negative way when used properly, right?
No,
Right.
In order to be competitive, you got to harness the power of these new technologies. It creates the efficiencies you need. We have a lot of wage inflation. We have to use people more efficiently. There's more competition, more things going on. You've got to differentiate yourself. There's so many things that requires different thought. And I think the key to future success is seek out change and embrace it. Don't try to avoid it because change is going to be part of anybody's success story. Those that can adapt are going to be fine. I think this industry, is going to go through some changes because of the corporate structure. There's a lot of things good and bad. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I think the private practitioner, the individual practices, the private practices are going to be fine. I think they're going to be very successful. They can do very well, and I think they can compete very well. We just have to stay on top of technology and what change is coming towards us. We got to embrace it.
So I got one final question for you before we wrap things up. If you weren't a veterinarian, what might you have you done instead?
Yeah, that's a good question. What might I have done instead? First of all, I'm just blessed that I had this opportunity to be a veterinarian. I think in the 80s it wasn't easy to get in school, and I didn't get in school after my first time, and I had choices at that time. I also looked at the human medical field, but I think I would have been, no matter what industry I was in, I would have been an entrepreneur. I would have enjoyed building teams of people and creating successful outcomes. I can't think of an industry I would rather be in right now, but I don't think I would not have had successes in any industry that I might have entered, just because you apply the basic principles of business to any industry, core values, and you cannot not be successful if you have a team of people working together with the same core values, with the same looking for the same results. It's impossible not to have a successful business, and it doesn't matter what your core values are. As long as everybody adheres to those core values and pursues those core values in a cohesive way, you'll have a successful business. But I guess, I could give you a better answer. I would have been a professional baseball player.
See, there you go. Come on, that's all I was looking for. There you go.
Yeah, that's really, and actually, when I went to college.
Yeah.
I show their story. When I went to college, I was a very good athlete in high school. I played baseball. I did very good. I went to college. I tried to get into the varsity team as a freshman. I didn't make the team.
What position? What were you playing?
I was playing third base and second base. And
wow. Okay.
Yeah, I love third base. Yeah, I love third base. I love the quick reactions at third base that you needed. But I knew I was going to be a baseball player in high school. And that's why I made the comment I didn't decide to become a veterinarian until I was in college, because there was no option. I was going to be a baseball player, and that was my dream. And then I didn't make it on the team, and I says, uh-oh, what am I going to do now?
Right.
I'm going to have to find an alternative. And I just looked around, and I saw my colleagues in freshman school and freshmen of college, and they were all pre-med, pre-dent, pre-vet, pre-this. I says, the hardest curriculum looks like veterinary medicine, so let's go for it.
Well, listen, I think you had a pretty successful pivot, if I don't say so myself. That's pretty cool. Third base, playing baseball. I love that. That's a great story. That's good. Oh man. So listen, that wraps up our conversation with Dr. Mohnacky. I want to thank everybody for joining us on Just Vetting. I appreciate you spending the time with us, and I look forward to seeing you all next time. Craig, thank you. It's enjoyable having a conversation with you. Thanks for being a guest.
Thank you for having me, and I hope I was able to impart some tidbits that people can take and help them with.
Definitely. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.